Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? It's your boy Doggie Diamonds, another episode of the Keep It 1000 show. I'm on here today. This is not live, this is on the playback. So, shout out to everybody who's going to look at this on the playback, everybody who donate, everybody who subscribe. Before I start, you know what I got to do. I got to run this intro, so hold on for a second. So, yeah, I'm back. This is Doggie Diamonds, Keep It 1000 show. I had to do this show. This is a homie of mine who I speak to behind the scenes so much. Y'all seen him on various channels on YouTube. You seen him on my channel a few times. But we always talk about issues going on in society, especially between blacks and Latinos. So I had to bring him. He's like the expert between the relationship between, or lack thereof, relationship between blacks and Latinos. This is brother Malik, aka Cuban Crisis, right?
Yes, sir.
So introduce yourself to the people.
Black Power Palante. I want to thank you for the compliment, the expert.
Yeah.
I have no PhD, but I would like to say that I'm pretty informed on this. Basically, I've been on different platforms. Prior to the platforms, been an activist most of my life. Involved in organizations and affiliated with organizations.
So yeah. So when you say that, because I don't want people to think that you're just some talking head, somebody who read a few books, somebody who is a YouTube scholar who just go on YouTube and just talk about a bunch of things that he don't know. Can you name some of the organizations that you were a part of? And you don't have to name all of them. You could leave, you could omit whatever you want to omit, but name some of the organizations that you were a part of.
Well, the longest membership I held was the Universal Zulu Nation, which was 24 years.
Wow. Okay.
And I held different positions. My last position, I was a national spokesman, one of the national spokesmen. I am a member of the new Black Panther Party.
Okay.
And I've worked with various different organizations. I'm allies with different organizations. I have respect for other organizations such as the International Concerned Friends from Mumia Abu Jamal, to the MOVE movement, to the Nation of Islam, Nation of God's Earth, the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, which is in Newark, New Jersey. Short is the NAVC. POP, People's Organization for Progress, which is they are in New York. They are also in Newark, New Jersey. And an online group I'm with, I'm a member of. I want to give shout out to Team Osiris.
Team Osiris. Okay. So I want to get to the meat and potatoes. I know we're going to keep the people entertained and educated and attempt to educate them on certain topics that's going on. Everybody likes beef. Everybody likes drama. So we're going to give them that, but also try to dispel some of the beef and drama that's been going on so long and try to give them some type of clarity. So, me being black, yourself being Cuban, I can speak for black people from what I know, and you can speak for Cuban, which you consider yourself to be black also, but so what would you be, like a African Cuban? Like how do you break that down?
Well, in Cuba, you're seen as Cuban. You hear this term Afro-Cuban. You hear this today. Just like you hear the new one is what is it?
Afro Latino.
Latinx?
Oh,
No,
oh,
Latinx.
oh! I never
It's
heard
like
it.
Litinx.
Wow.
Um, I don't get caught up in all that. My thing is, I look at it um, based on your ethnicity, based on what you could be mixed with. The island is Cuba. It's a Taino name. It's one of the few islands you'll find that has a Taino or indigenous name. Haiti it may be spelled slightly different, but it's pronounced the same, basically. Versus like you look at someplace like Puerto Rico, that was not what Puerto Rico was called. That is the colonized name.
Got you.
That is okay. But within these islands, you had different groups. Okay, so you had the indigenous people. In some islands, that indigenous DNA, that indigenous blood may not be as prominent in other places, which may hurt the feelings of some so-called Latinos, but that's just the facts due to extermination. Not to say that there's not those of us that do not have that DNA,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not as prominent as some may think in some places. A place like South America or Central America, indigenous blood is more rampant. It's more there.
Got you.
So then comes, the Europeans. Here comes the Africans. So there was a mixture. Then in some aspects, like in Cuba, Chinese came
Wow.
because they were used to on the sugarcane fields. You can see Chinese in Jamaica. You can see Chinese. You can see Indians from India in places like Guyana or Trinidad
Facts.
because they were indentured servants. Just a nicer name of saying a slave.
Got you.
So there's a mixture. Then you have, within this century, or maybe part of the end of the previous century, Europeans that came into various so-called islands to countries, i.e. Central America, South America, that speak Spanish, and these were full-blooded Europeans that may have not mixed in with the people. So then this brings you to this word mulatto.
Okay.
And mulatto is a noun. It's a person of white or black or white and indigenous ancestry. And it derives from mula, M-U-L-A, which is Old Galician Portuguese, or it's Latin, it's mulus, M-U-L-U-S. It means mule. The etymology, the origin of this word comes from the Arabic, muliwad, means a person of mixed ancestry. It literally means generated, brought up with the implication of being born and raised among Arabs, but not Arab blood. Derived from walad. It's colloquial Arabic pronunciation. It can vary greatly. And walad means descendant, offspring, child, boy, young animal, and young one. In context, it means adopted.
Mm.
So the Spanish, who has an influence of the Arabs or the Arab language, because the Moors invaded Iberia, which is now present-day Spain and Portugal. The Moors did not speak Moor. They spoke Arabic, or they may speak dialects of tribes of where they were from in that part of North Africa. But the Arab influence came into Spanish language. If I say aquí in Spanish, it means here. If I say aquí in Arabic, it means brother.
Mm-hmm.
Pants is the same. So there's different words that are similar.
Mm-hmm.
So there was what's the word I'm looking for? Not an inspiration, but there was taking, borrowing. Okay. So the Spanish had a caste system that they invented, the La Caste system.
And when you say Spanish, you
Which is,
mean descendants of Spain?
I'm talking about the Spaniards.
Spaniards, okay.
The
Okay.
Spaniards themselves had
Okay.
a system that they came up with, and is a caste system in which they invented 16 races, which anybody takes the time, they can look this up. This is in the libraries, this is online. And mulatto is a part of that caste system. So depending on what your mixture was, is what you would be considered in this caste system. And the lighter you were at the top of the echelon of that pyramid that they created. So, you have the Inquisitions, and the Inquisitions was the window to the African Holocaust, because the Inquisitions was committed, it was ordained by the Catholic Church to seek out land, to seek out riches. It wasn't done because they were indigenous people. It wasn't done because they were Mayans or Aztec or Incas or Taínos or Boricuas or Caribs or Arawaks. It was done because they wanted the land and the riches. So this is economic classism. I say that to say because all of this is capitalism, and this is white supremacy. So the Inquisitions happened over economics, but they had to have a justification of why they committed the Inquisitions. And it was because they didn't have Jesus. It was because of how they were dressed. It was because they didn't speak their language. They didn't have their names. They didn't have their culture. It was because they had to make themselves feel superior and the indigenous people feel inferior. So they had to justify this. And this is what we see in the African Holocaust. They had to justify the means of what they were doing. It was based on economic classism. It wasn't because they were from the Congo. It wasn't because they were from Ghana. It wasn't because one was darker than the other. It was because they wanted the money. They wanted the riches. They needed, let me say this, they needed those Africans because when they got done with the Inquisitions, they had more pillaging of the land. They had more production that needed to be made. They needed more money. So they chose the African. And so the Africans were brought to, in what's called the triangular slave trade. They were brought to South America. They were brought to Central America, and they were brought to the Caribbean and into North America. And when they were brought there for cheap labor. They needed to make money. They needed somebody to grow indigo and tobacco and sugarcane. They needed somebody to do this. So when you look up capitalism, it's a noun. Now everything I'm saying, I'm going to bring this together of 2018.
Yes, we're gonna tie it in, but I'm glad that you're taking it back to the point of origin, and then we'll bring it forward.
Exactly. And this is key to understanding what we're seeing today in society, what we've been seeing. So capitalism is a noun. It's an economic and political system which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. Prior to capitalism, you had feudalism, which existed the 13th, 15th century. Capitalism comes in, and just because we have this term called capitalism doesn't mean capitalism didn't exist. It's sort of like saying communism and socialism. Just because you had Lenin and Marx does not mean that there was not something already in place before Europeans came up with socialism or communism.
With
it
terms,
existed.
yeah, with
They
terms, yeah.
They defined it.
Yeah, they gave terms to it.
So, exactly. So when you look at this term capitalism, what was the political system? Capitalism. And what was the country's trade? Slaves. Who were the slaves? Indigenous people, Africans.
Mm-hmm.
What was the trade also was cotton and indigo and tobacco and sugarcane, things like this. But what the industry, it was controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. So now you have Chase Bank, Bank of America, Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the private owners.
Mm-hmm.
And then just your rich white people. And in some cases, there was other people involved in it too, just not white people.
So when you say white people, do you mean European or do you mean white Americans? Or both?
Both.
Both, okay.
You had Spaniards, you had Portuguese, you had the English, the Jews, the so-called Jews played a role. Arabs played a role. And then as America is founded and it's settled after 1776, here we have America, you know, the white people here.
Got you.
Right, that want to separate from Europe. You know, they played a role. There was many people who played a role in this. And so what composes capitalism is three things, which is economic classism, racism, and sexism. And from capitalism and those three components, you have many devices. You have the prison industrial complex system. You have the educational system. You have the healthcare system. You have the media. You have religion. You have many different things that play a role. Liberalism.
So it's 2018. Somebody listening to this might be 20 years old. Somebody might even be 45. Somebody might be 33. They listen to this. They say, Doggie Diamonds, Brother Malik, what the fuck does this have to do with anything, man? Nobody want to hear none of this shit. What are y'all talking about? Can we define what exactly we're trying to convey to the people? The name of this video is How Blacks and Latinos Are Being Used Against Each Other. Because, and this is a long question, and also like rhetorical question. I seen you online on Facebook one day, kind of defending your stance of how being Cuban, African Americans and Africans were allies. We're all one. That's what you were stating. And, you know, many of our elders and forefathers agreed, but then some people was using the argument of Dr. John Henry Clark, we have no friends. And they were really coming at you, and I seen you kind of frustrated because you was trying to, like, yo, hold up, how are we divided? Who divided us? Like, it wasn't always like that. Malcolm spoke about the relationship. Minister Farrakhan speaks about the relationship. Dr. Khalid Muhammad spoke about the relationships between black and brown. Why do you think in 2018 everybody has the mentality of it's us, meaning African Americans and people who consider themselves to be Africans against everybody, fuck everybody else, especially Latinos? Why do you think that is?
There are a lot of so-called African Americans which they have every right to be fed up. They're tired of being at the bottom of the barrel. They're tired of being the bottom of the totem pole. And Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad talked about this. Everywhere he went, he said whether it was a Christian nation, an Islamic nation, a communist nation, a democratic nation, a socialist nation, darker people, you were always at the bottom. And this is not coincidental. There's a reason for this. But the thing is that knowing the history and knowing your enemy and putting yourselves in the shoes of the enemy, what would you do if you were in the shoes? Would you want indigenous and Africans united? Would you want this new group of people, so-called, and when I say new, I'm talking about due to the Inquisitions and the African Holocaust, the mixture that took place, and now we have a group called so-called Latinos. Would you want them? Would you want indigenous, Latinos, and blacks united? They were all done the same for the same purposes. When we use the term, there's no such thing as a Latino.
Okay.
Well, let me say this. A Latino would be somebody from Greece, from Italy, from Portugal, and Spain, and France.
Yeah, we defined that before. If they go into to our older videos, but we could bring them. You could bring them up to speed on that though, just in case they went over.
They're speaking a Latin-based language.
Mm-hmm.
So this word Latino comes from Latin. So they're saying that Latino is somebody living, like for example, a Haitian would be considered a Latino because they speak Creole. They speak a French dialect.
Mm. And they don't think they like. So they wouldn't call themselves that at all.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nor should a Puerto Rican or so-called Puerto Rican or Cuban or Dominican or Nicaraguan or Mexican. None of these people should be calling themselves Latinos. A Hispanic denotes an island that somebody called Hispaniola, which is present-day Haiti and Dominican Republic, and now you get the name Hispanic. Spanish denotes Spain. So I'll ask the question again. Ghana, they speak English, but they speak Tree and Ashanti and all these different dialects. So does Nigeria. Are they Englishmen? Are they English? No. Algeria speaks of French. Morocco, they speak of French Arabic. Egypt has been colonized so much. Are they English people? Are they French people? No. So the problem is the indoctrination. And this is the whole problem here. The problem is that there is an indoctrination that took place through the Inquisitions and the African Holocaust to make people think that they're superior based on skin complexion, to make one feel that they're superior based on a dialect they speak. Even among so-called Latinos, one will feel that they're better because they think their Spanish is better than the next. When you're both speaking the slave master's language. You don't even know your original tongue. The names, Rodriguez, Lopez, slave names. Thompson, Johnson, slave names. Christianity, Catholicism, slave religions. We have too much in common. We have the drum. We have the constant belief in a creator and our ancestors and offerings. When you eat foods, you'll see the influence of Africa in the food. So the issue is just indoctrination, that a group of people feel that they're superior to another because this is what they were taught. And this is the tradition within their home. There's a saying, the black grandmother in the closet. You'll see somebody that you're like, damn, he sure isn't black. Oh yeah? Look at his family. Look how they start getting darker. It's just lighter. Black people can produce any shade of people. Do not judge a book by its cover. So this is all a result of the Inquisitions and slavery to 2018. So if you don't solve alcoholism in your family, if you don't solve sexual abuse in your family, if you don't solve illiteracy in your family, and this just keeps going on for decades, It's the same thing. If you don't solve this colorism issue, this racism issue, this indoctrination, it's going to continue.
So right now, I'm not even gonna say 2018, but 2018 and way before that, black and brown have been beefing from LA to every county jail to prison, everything. Why do you think that is? Why can't they realize that they both have the same, well, we both have the same oppressors and suffer from the same oppression to a certain extent?
Khalid Muhammad said Dr. Khalid Muhammad said the best. He says, have you forgotten that once we were brought here, we were robbed of our names, we were robbed of our religion, our language, our cultures, and our gods. And many of us, by the way we act, we even lost our minds. This is all it boils down to: a lack of knowledge of self, a lack of history, a lack of political education. Understanding capitalism, you understand that the present industrial complex system is a device to capitalism. You understand that it is a money-making machine. It is modern-day slavery. It's a modern-day concentration camp. It's a modern-day slave plantation, where if they don't make money, they have to, on the streets, start arresting people to bring in. And who is the highest in the prisons, in the jails? Blacks and Latinos. So then once you get in there, you can't be united.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens, they enable division to occur. You got to go with that group. You got to go with that group. You got to join this group. You got to join that group. And then it leaks onto the streets. And then the people on the streets who have a no knowledge of self emulate prison. They want to be thugs. They want to be gangsters. And so they then adapt to prison culture lifestyle. So now you have division on the streets. And this is all systematically created. It's one big chessboard with puppet strings.
So let me ask you a question that is definitely going to get you in trouble depending on how you answer this. It is a difference between Africans and African Americans, or blacks in America. Blacks in America have African roots, but Africans are from the continent. And really, there's no such thing as an African, because African is the continent, but it comprises of a bunch of countries. So, you can't just call everybody Africans, because many of them call themselves by the name of their country, but that's a whole nother topic. Should Latinos, which again, you kind of broke that down, so sometimes I don't even know what to call, but should Latinos, let's call them for Latinos for argument's sake, because that's what everybody classified them as for now, until we could, because just like y'all, we don't have a universal name for ourselves. We don't know whether we black, whether we African American, and Latinos don't know whether they Latinos, Hispanic, or Spanish. Same thing. Should Latinos have more respect for black Americans and Africans, because so much of the traditions and so much of the roots is in these Spanish-speaking countries?
If they were in the right frame of African mind, they should.
Okay.
Because, first of all, everybody in this country should be thanking the so-called African American. Because the plight and the struggle of the so-called African American has made it easier for everybody else. We are reaping the benefits of their oppression.
Got you. So because when I look at the thing that killed me about Dominicans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, most Spanish speaking people from these countries, they will check on their job applications or their census that they're white, but they look like David Ortiz or Sammy Sosa before he turned into a pink flamingo. So I am confused by that. Like, how are you white? Like, that just confuses the hell out of me. David Ortiz looked like Florida Evans. same hair and everything. So I'm confused. What do you think happened in the mind of these people to make them think that they have no African ancestry at all?
Well, in regards to that, you would be talking about law enforcement
Hmm.
and the judicial system and things like that. And it's funny you say that because I was having this conversation the other day with my queen, and we were looking at pictures of people, right, that mugshots and what they were classified as. Clearly, this person was not European,
Mm-hmm.
but it says white.
Mm.
And again, what that is, what I believe it is because white people, Europeans here globally, they're an endangered species.
Mm-hmm.
So they pull who they can pull for their own little benefit. It's like when you look at these white supremacist gangs, like Aryan Brotherhood and stuff like this, right? And you seeing there's been pictures on Facebook and stuff, and you see Mexicans or Central Americans that have swastikas, or they're joining these groups. It's all a game of chess. It just goes into the divide and conquer of manipulating people. If they had a knowledge of self, they would not be manipulated. They would know that they are not a Caucasian. They would know they're not a European. They would know that they're not white. You know, they would know this.
So why is it that when you deal with the Nation of Gods and Earth, the Nation of Islam, even his Hebrew Israelites don't have a problem with Latinos being a part of their organization, but when you
Mm-hmm.
deal with a lot of Pan Africanists and RBG and Black nationalists, they like, man, get them fucking Puerto Ricans out of here. They not down with us. We against them. What happened? What is that all about?
I don't want to sound arrogant when I say this, but I don't know how else to say it. In my opinion, there are people who, as again, I'm going to reference Dr. Khaled Abdul Muhammad because, you hear people talk about that's my master teacher, and I consider him one of my master teachers, who I actually did have the privilege of meeting and doing security for and eating. So it wasn't like I seen him on Facebook, a picture or a YouTube video. Like I met him one time, but that's a day I will never forget. And I will not forget the words he said to me. He referred to me as black man. He referred to me as God.
Mm.
And I think the problem is that it's not just so-called African Americans who represent Pan-Africanism or Black nationalism or RBG. It is the same other side of the coin of so-called Latinos who represent brown power, who represent nationalism from their particular ethnicity, who they themselves may be some form of socialist in their political ideology, right? But they are about their roots. These are people who don't understand what they're supposed to be about. What do I mean by that? A Pan-Africanist should not have an issue with a so-called Latino. A Puerto Rican nationalist should not have an issue with a so-called African American.
Mm-hmm.
Your plight and struggle is the same thing. It is against capitalism, white supremacy. And it's okay to be a Pan-Africanist. It's okay to be a so-called Puerto Rican nationalist. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you get into this tribalism and you want to bring another one down and you have a problem with them, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at our elders who are either dead, incarcerated, or they're still alive, Garvey didn't have these problems. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't have these problems. Malcolm, Father of Allah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan,
Dr. Khaled
Dr.
Abdul
Khaled
Muhammad.
Abdul, even though he wasn't the founder of the New Black Panther Party, he took it in another direction and he was very pro-black and anti-white. But in case anybody forgot, I was a part of a committee that I helped out in for the first and second Million Youth March.
Mm.
The Million Youth March was about black and Latino empowerment.
Mm.
That's what it was about. That was the purpose of the Million Youth March. What happens is you get people that get caught up in their feelings, and they began to think irrationally and emotionally. It's not to say that they don't have valid points with things, but if we understand the Inquisitions and we understand the African Holocaust, and we understand that everything that has transpired, and we understand if all these groups claim that they're anti-capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
all these groups claim that they're anti-white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you have to be politically educated. And the new Black Panther Party and the original Panther Party, political education is something that's taught. So if you understand political education, what's your problem?
So
you should be able to decipher and say, this so-called Puerto Rican over here, that's a coon. This so-called African American over here, he's a coon. These are crackers. Because a cracker does not just pertain to the European. The cracker could pertain to anybody because now you have taken on the mentality of the cracker.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a white supremacist and be black as midnight.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a white supremacist. It's your mentality is that of you're emulating the oppressor.
So my thing is when did it get all mixed up? Because now, everything is on social media, so it's more out in the open. I always thought Castro was an ally of the African and the African in America and the Black American. I always thought Castro. I always thought Che was a ally. Why do these new people like to quote, Dr. John Henrik Clarke, we have no friends? Why is everybody having that sentiment now when historically there was allies?
It's $1 million question.
Yeah, that I really want to know that. Like, why is everybody saying, "Oh, we don't have no allies, we don't have no friends. Don't trust nobody. Don't trust Cubans. Don't trust, to hell with them. All we got is us." Where do you think, who broke that?
I personally started noticing this around 2014.
Okay.
And it may have been occurring prior to that. But when I first was like on a platform on media, this is when I first, and I was shocked. Like I literally was shocked and I was hurt. I'm like, wow, like really? This is what you think of me? And this is what you think of this group? Like, wow. I was shocked. I think it could be a combination that there are people who are agitators, who are put in place in various formations and groups to cause division, even amongst those that look like them. Let's not forget, I'm not going to say no names. I don't think they were mine, but just out of respect for these two brothers in particular, I'm not going to say their names, but they are a part of the Panther Party, the Black Panther Party. They are out right now, but it was said to them that there are many people in your formation that work for us. Okay, you got to think about the 1950s with the Nation of Islam. It's recorded there was about 50,000 or more informants in the Nation of Islam. Then you have COINTELPRO. What was the purpose of COINTELPRO? To stop the rise of a black messiah. So if this is done amongst so-called African Americans, why wouldn't it be done towards so-called Latinos? And why would there not be this issue within so-called Latinos where there's Asian provocateurs, agitators, whether they're being paid or whether they're doing it on their own accord? Even if you're just doing it out of ignorance, you're still partaking in being a provocateur.
Yeah.
So I believe in fundamentals. I'm a fundamentalist. And I understand when so-called African Americans say we should concentrate on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with that. I think that's intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
That's 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 intelligent. But there are those who say that and can do that, but also know and understand that they have allies.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some people from both sides of the coin that don't want to see that. So when I hear people say that, I stay away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, you're just it doesn't resonate with me.
Well, you got called
Resonate.
you got called names for being a freedom fighter. You got called a spick that, what do you know? You know what I'm saying? Was you, when you first got called that, it wasn't never really to your face, it was in comments. And I don't ever remember you speaking out against the plight of African Americans or even Cuban Americans. I never seen you be disrespectful. I never even seen you use verbiage or certain words before, which we'll cover in another presentation. When you first got called just a spick, what do you know? Like, mind your business. What was your thoughts when you first heard those things or saw those things being typed in reference to you?
I was really hurt.
Mm.
And there's times that there are times that I feel like throwing in the towel.
Mm.
Because I've always been the type of person that I will bend over backwards for my people before myself.
Mm. Do you think
so when
yeah, I don't want to cut you, but do you think that right now, 2018, we're going into 2019 in a few weeks. Do you think there's a lack of identity amongst our people because there's too many identities with our people?
I think there's confusion.
That's what I mean. So yeah, that's
yeah.
Like it's a lack of identity because there's so many identities, and now we're picking and choosing who we want to identify with. And even amongst us, we're not even identifying with each other anymore. And the reason, because we'll go back to the initial topic and the initial title, is that I feel like we're all being used against each other while the puppet master, while Geppetto was just sitting back like, look what we're doing. We're implementing new names. We're implementing new countries. We're implementing new terms and have them fighting amongst each other. Look how they don't get along, but look at what we're doing to all of them separately and in unison at the same time, and we're being able to pit them against one another, and they're fighting. We don't even have to do anything anymore. Look how they're fighting over a title. Look how they're fighting over a birthplace. Look how they're fighting over and I'm gonna be real, a lot of people gonna hear this and gonna be mad, but I never, I don't have no filter and I keep it 1,000. A lot of shit that people are fighting over is fictitious. It can't even be historically proven.
That, and it's not that it's not to be studied, but at the end of the day, a lot of what we see, how is that going to abolish capitalism, white supremacy?
Yeah.
How is that providing food, clothing, and shelter? How is that ending homelessness? How is that ending drug addiction and gangs and single mothers with children who are fatherless? Like, it's
sad.
Sad.
When you
again, it's not that it's not to say don't study it, but when you think that, okay, I know this. Okay, you can speak this language. Okay, you got 500 people now that can speak Metanetter. What's gonna happen now?
Yeah,
you're speaking a dead language.
So
language.
Yeah. So let me not even to pick on them, but dealing with them also. But when you deal with organizations and groups like historically the Young Lords, what was their nationality?
Well, it was founded by a Puerto Rican,
Mm-hmm.
so-called Puerto Rican,
Mm-hmm.
in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So then you had so-called Puerto Ricans from Uptown,
Mm-hmm.
Harlem, the Bronx, that went to Chicago and they brought it to New York. But the Young Lords actually allowed everybody in. Do I necessarily agree with that? No. But they did. There was black Americans in the Young Lords. There was Caucasians.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bunch of people. There was many people that were part of Young Lords. I think that, and this is something that we talk about on Team Osiris, is that it's not too. It's constructive criticism, which a lot of people, when they hear that, they think you're hating.
Facts.
You know,
You're not allowed to have an opinion on nothing. If you don't agree with them, you're a hater.
It's like, why? What do you mean? It's like, for you, for example, you're a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
If nobody was to give you their opinion, how would you advance and how would you be better? I'm sure people have given their opinion to you on things.
Facts. Well, it's people who I know and trust and love that give me their opinion.
Exactly.
It's just not people who
but
just
it's still.
Yeah. Even in hate is some, but even in hate it can be some truth. In any criticism, it can be some truth, because some criticism derives from a critic. A critic's job is to kind of like pick apart shit. You know what I'm saying? So I don't take it as hate, but I do. Before we close out, is one more thing that I wanted to ask you. Schomburg, what was he?
He was so-called Puerto Rican.
Okay.
He was he would be considered Afro-Boricua.
So do African Americans throw him away?
No, I haven't seen nobody, even from various shades of Boricuas, Puerto Ricans, they don't throw them away. And I'm glad you brought that up. You see how there's the picking and choosing.
Yeah, I do this, Malik.
But
this is what I do.
In that situation, this falls on the so-called Latinos.
Mm.
You embrace Arturo Schomburg,
Mm-hmm.
but you may not embrace Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad.
Mm.
You may not embrace a John Henry Clark,
Mm-hmm.
or a Duruba bin Wahad, or Jamil Alameen, or a Momia,
Mm-hmm.
or Jamil Matula Shakur.
Mm-hmm.
You pick and choose. There's picking and choosing. There's some people do.
So what would he? So okay, where was he born at?
In Puerto Rico. Where in Puerto Rico? Off the top of my head right now, I don't recall.
Okay, but was he? So he's not an African American. So he's would considered to be a black Puerto Rican.
Yes.
So who
that speaks Spanish?
That speaks fluent Spanish, right?
And an African here.
Yeah,
of the diaspora that speaks English.
And
you know,
and created an institute based off of his studies of African studies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the point I'm making is that if you have the Schomburg Institute, who has all of this information, but he's born in Puerto Rico, speaks Spanish, he would be considered to be a Puerto Rican based off of birthplace, right? And I mean, if I was born in Japan,
his nationality.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I was born in Japan, I'm not Japanese, but I can be, you know, based on citizenship.
Your paperwork would say Japanese.
Yeah, which is very crazy as hell. I couldn't even imagine that. But the point that I'm trying to make is how the greatness of the individual is how people want to latch on to them and say he's ours. You know, he's a part of us. And then, but other than that, he's, you know, we could claim him even though he spoke this and did that, but fuck the rest of y'all. That's the point I'm making. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, with how the Latinos would claim him, but they're not gonna deal with Dr. Clark, or they don't care about Matulu or Mumia or nobody like that. And just like how African Americans would claim Schomburg, but will say, fuck the real Tupac Shakur. You know what I'm saying? The Tupac Amaru Shakur. Fuck him. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't it that's where I think it's confusing at. You know what I'm saying? Like how do people pick and choose who they want to latch on as their historical figures and who is our friends?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when Dr. Clark said that, I think that being that he's no longer here, it was cut and dry, but I think it could have been probed a little bit more for clarity, because now people are running with one of the most overused words, narrative, because everybody says fucking narrative for everything, but everybody's running with a narrative based off of something that he said in the 80s, I believe. You know what I'm saying? And it's 2018. Like, so if we have no friends, then who is our friends? Because even the people who should be our friends don't think they're our friends anymore now. So who is our friends?
And I think this is when it comes down to judging people individually. Because everything I've said that has painted the picture, let's just say, of so-called Latinos not being for Africa, or so-called African Americans, there's many that are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just as there's many so-called African Americans that are for so-called Latinos, and you have some that are not. It just boils to individuals, and it all just boils down to being educated, and it's a touchy subject, and it's something that I'm pulling the table right now. By since I'm willing to go any place to speak and address this to any. I don't care if it's a prison. I don't care if it's on the streets of the gangs. I don't care if it's in a college or university. You want me? You want me to speak and to talk and to bring clarity? I would love to. I would go anywhere.
Isn't it crazy that according to legend and according to the history, the Bloods were created in New York to fight the Spanish in jail? Ain't that crazy?
Yeah.
Ain't that crazy? And the only reason why I'm tying that in is because you said about the prison industrial complex, but who run the prisons? And who's the one who separates them in the prison, and who's the one that tell them that they're different in the prison? And even in jail, it's some people darker than me and you who will say, I'm not black, I'm Cuban, and I'm Latin King, Luneta, or something like that. But I'm not black. I don't have nothing to do with them. Fuck them. And it goes back to the title of this video, how a lot of brothers is being used against each other based off of the language they speak, not even their roots, their shade, or their overall culture. It's just a language, because a lot of Cubans have African culture.
Well, Cuban culture is very African.
Yeah.
Very African. Like my family, no longer here, I would be classified as mulatto.
Say that one more time. You broke up a little bit. You would be classified as what?
I said, though my family's no longer here, I would be classified as a mulatto.
Wow.
I don't call my, and mulatto is a term in Spanish. For example, we were speaking conversational Spanish, and we mentioned somebody. It's still a term that's used in conversation to this day, and I find it highly. I'm not a donkey or a mule, man. I'm not no horse. Like it's sad. It's very sad, and I think education is key. And when you mention, things people have said about me or what. I'm just going to use me as an example.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, this requires a lot of patience and tolerance. Because if we understand that our identities and everything has been taken from us, then this is going to be the result. So, in order to be into this, you have the people. This is about the people. So you have to have patience and tolerance. You have to place yourself in the shoes of people, just like we should all, to have a thorough understanding, place ourselves in the shoes of the oppressor. Let's think like the oppressor. Why does the oppressor do this? It's just like when if you, let's just say, for example, to watch something dealing with politics, right? Watch watch somebody like Rush Limbaugh and Hannity and these right wing and these conservative, just like watch the liberals. You have to understand the perspectives. You can't just have this one political way of thinking. You have to be diverse in political thinking. This is in order to combat your enemy.
Got you. All right, so I'm ready to sign out. Hopefully we gave them a little bit of clarity. I don't, we're in a situation where people hear shit and they go in one ear out the other. It has to come
Yeah.
from certain people for people to want to hear it or want to even study it or learn it. Which is cool. Hopefully we have some effect on one person, or maybe one person might even ask questions in the comments, and we might be able to get into other dialogue based off that. But the object of the game is to create dialogue for us to have these conversations. And the forum is open. Leave a comment below. Brother Malik is on Facebook as Cuban Crisis. If you have any questions for Brother Malik, leave it the comment in the comment box. Be respectful, and we could come back and address anything. If anybody has anything that they want to talk to him about, personally, leave a comment. He will read the comments. We will get back. And then me and you have another presentation that we're gonna do about Latinos and the N word. So we let's let the we're gonna do that ASAP. So I want all the people to be on the lookout for that. Anything you want to say in closing, any information you want to give, any social media, um, you have the floor to close out.
Yeah, I want to give shout out to Team Osiris. Check them out on Facebook, the Team Osiris group. Check Team Osiris on YouTube. Osiris is spelled O.S.I.R.I.S. And anything else? Just try to have an open mind. Research the Inquisitions. Research the African Holocaust. Research these different movements. Where both were and still are together in unity. Check out Minister Abel Muhammad. Check out on Facebook Brother Kalanji. The You don't believe me about about Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad? Look that up. What was the point of the Million Youth March? There's this anything we've mentioned, these names, look into it, research it, and just understand where you live. You live in America, you live in capitalism, you live in white supremacy. Understand what capitalism is, understand what white supremacy is, and understand that we need to get out of this tribalism.
Mm-hmm.
We need to update things in our organizations. Understand too that don't be so egotistical to think that it's just about you, because the capitalist white supremacists come in at nature. the trees, the environment, the animals. All of this is connected. Animals, when they become extinct, destroys and takes out the balance of nature of what was intended for there to be so we all can live on this earth. We ain't got no trees. We ain't breathing. This is all capitalism, white supremacy.
Got you. All right, so that's what it is. Malik, I will build with you later on. Hopefully I could get you on within the next couple of days and we could talk about that other topic, Latinos and the N-word. So I'm gonna sign you out. I'll holler at you later on. Peace.
Peace.
All right, everybody. So you know who I am. I'm Doggie Diamonds. This is Doggie Diamonds TV. Hopefully y'all got a little bit of clarity. Hopefully you have some questions. Hopefully you have some comments, respectable comments. You could leave them below. You can subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you share. Make sure you do all those things. If you want to leave a donation, the donation links are in the box. If you felt like you learned something from what we spoke about today, you know, I don't mind a donation. Merch is available. You can see the links to the merch. Everything is in the description box. So make sure you do that. I'm Doggie Diamonds. I am out of here. Peace. Keep it 1000. You are now watching Doggie Diamonds TV. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Also, you want to hit the bell so you can get all notifications of when I'm going live or when I upload new content. And don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment on this channel. Peace.